So you're probably looking at the title right now and it says Shattered Veil, Shattered Expectations, and you're probably thinking that this guy has absolutely no creativity whatsoever, and to that I say, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think it's safe to say that that title really fits this map and it really fits this review, because I believe the community has come to a pretty fine agreement that this map is the most surprising zombies map of Black Ops 6 so far, and this time it's actually for a good reason. But of course, this is a review video, so that means I'm going to be talking about how I feel about the map. But instead of this being like the most cliche review video where I'm going to be going over positives and negatives for the map, if you've seen my review on the Tomb, then you probably know how the structure of this is going to go. But it's not going to be just positives and negatives. I'm going to be going in more fine detail about specific things on the map, like the wonder weapons, the gameplay, things like that very specifically, and talking about what I liked about this certain thing and what I didn't like about this certain thing, and kind of coming to an overall conclusion of how I feel about the map. But as you can probably tell, this is going to be a lot more of a free-for-all type video where I'm just kind of explaining how I'm feeling rather than scripting anything or over-editing anything and cutting out a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be doing a lot more of a free-for-all, talking about how I feel. I think that's the best way to communicate very nuanced and subjective thoughts. And as always, you guys are always open to leaving your thoughts, leaving how you feel about the map in the comments, and of course, be sure to leave a like on the video. It really helps me out, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the actual review itself. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say this to kick things off. This map absolutely rocks, and like, just without sugarcoating anything, I feel like that's a good way to start us off, just telling you how I feel front and center. I have been really enjoying this map, both just in the gameplay side of things as well as the Easter egg. I've had such a great time on this map. I've played it a lot and really enjoying it. And to put that into perspective, this is probably the map I have played the most at launch since Terminus. So I obviously played a lot of Black Ops 6 Zombies at launch, specifically Terminus. Didn't play a lot of Liberty Falls, but when Shattered Veil came out, I have played a lot more Black Ops 6 Zombies in comparison to when like Citadel came out, as well as when the Tomb came out. So Shattered Veil really ignited my love for Black Ops 6 Zombies again, and I've been playing Shattered Veil probably the most out of all of the previous maps combined. And I think the reason why I have been playing this map so constantly is because I have been really enjoying trying a lot of different things out and playing the map very differently. I think it's been so much fun to try different paths, try and do certain things a different way, doing the ray gun quests in a different order and doing the Easter eggs in a different order to try and figure out what path I like the best. And I can draw a lot of comparisons to other maps, and I'm probably going to end up doing that later in the video. But yeah, that's really the reason why I find this map replayable right now, is just because of the fact that I've been trying a lot of these different paths out, and it's been fun to explore these things. So I've been able to do the Easter egg several times because of this, and I feel like I've come to a really good final opinion on how I feel about the Easter egg overall, especially in comparison to the previous Black Ops 6 Easter eggs we've got. And of course, like I said, I'm gonna go into this in better detail later in the video, so stick around for that. But now, of course, is the time where I like to talk about the specific things this map does really well, as well as certain things that I maybe don't like as much about the map and what they could do to improve future maps based on that type of feedback, right? So let's go ahead and talk about it. First and foremost, I do want to get to the thing that I think surprised people the most about this map, and that is the size of it. So in the marketing, Treyarch really talked about how this rivals the size of Citadel des Morts, but previously, like within the last few months, a lot of people have thought that Citadel is a lot more smaller than it should have been, or it's a lot smaller than they thought at launch, and they thought that it should have been bigger considering the location and what it was, but it really was, and it was a fairly medium-sized map. So the marketing team was saying that this map was going to be a lot similar to that, or at least that's what it was sounding like. But no, this is without a doubt much bigger than Citadel. There's so much to the above ground area, and there is so much to the underground area. Now, granted, I am very interested to see what the reception to the size of this map is going to be in a few months, but I really don't see it being like Citadel, because this map is, like I said, a lot bigger than that map, so I really don't see any people kind of switching sides and saying, at launch, it's really big, and then later on saying, it's maybe not as big as it should have been. So I don't know. I don't see that happening similar to how Citadel was, but who knows? We'll see. I have no idea with the zombies community at this point. But like I said, there's a lot of areas above ground, a lot of areas underground. There's a lot of open spaces, especially outside of the map and outside of the mansion, like the courtyard. Even some of the spawn areas are pretty open. But even in the mansion as well, there's a lot of open space, like the first room that you go in with the dinosaur. And then, of course, you've got the underground area. The entire Sam AI room is incredibly big. There's even like the caverns or whatever you want to call it. Those are pretty open as well for the most part. That's where I typically like to do my high round strats at. But at the same time, it's complemented by the fact that there are some tight areas and puzzling areas, which I think is really good. So there's a lot of this very obvious and open areas where you can train around and it's easy to high round, but there's also some tight spaces where you really need to navigate through quickly before you get overrun and things like that. And I really like that. I think that's a good balance there of having a lot of obvious open areas as well as some puzzling areas. I think that's really good, and I think it's something that this game really needed. But at the same time, even though I say it's puzzling, it's really not that bad. There's only like a couple rooms that look similar, but honestly, at this point now, I've played the map a lot to the point where I really don't get confused that much anymore. So you just gotta learn it, just as you do with a lot of other maps. You've gotta play it a lot, you've gotta learn it, and it's really not that difficult to figure out. But I remember first playing this, and I was just in the underground area, in the Sam AI room, and I was already freaking out by how big the map is, and it just kept going into the caverns. I opened the door, and it's just the huge caverns underground, and I'm like, oh my god, it's still going. And then it kept going. There was another door that led to the fast travel, and it was like, this map is huge. Like, my reaction to this, I really wish I got it, but I botched the recording during my first playthrough. But, like, my reaction was so good to when it just kept opening up. I was like, oh my god, this map it's huge. And a lot of other people felt the same way. I was watching a lot of other first playthroughs, and so many other people were feeling the same way. And, on top of that, it just kept going. Like, there are so many secret rooms, like the one where you have to do the ray gun Mark P, I believe is what it is, the shotgun one, where you have to go and it's the giant dark ether worm from MWZ, and then there's, of course, other secret areas, like for the main Easter egg. It's so, there's so many secret rooms. It's such a big map, just completely expanding the layout and everything. It was so cool. And I do genuinely hope that more maps are like this. I really hope that they continue to utilize secret rooms and they continue to make it as big as this map was, because I genuinely loved that. But granted, it also was because expectations were fairly low and we weren't expecting a really big map, especially since some of the leaks were saying it wasn't going to be. So that's another reason why it was a lot more surprising. But I still, of course, want future maps to be like this. Even if the expectation may not be really low and it being very surprising, I still want really big maps like we got here. I think it's very much needed right now, especially after the last couple maps where Citadel was fairly medium sized and then the Tomb was pretty small for the most part. So I do really hope that more maps are like this. That is a really big plus. And I think another conversation that has been had about the previous Black Ops 6 maps, or just Black Ops 6 as a whole, is the atmosphere and the aesthetic of certain maps. In particular, the atmosphere being very similar on all of the maps, and I think that's just a modern zombies thing at whole that a lot of people are talking about. But Shattered Veil, the atmosphere is actually pretty solid. The atmosphere is actually pretty booming on this map, to be completely honest, even if it's not necessarily the most unique. So we're talking about Black Ops 6 being fairly similar on all of the maps, the aesthetic being somewhat similar, but this map, it doesn't really break out of that cycle, but it also is not hurting because of that, if that makes sense. It's still very good, but it isn't the most unique. And I think the main reason why the atmosphere is really good is because this probably has the best environmental storytelling out of all of Black Ops 6, and potentially, you could even argue, out of all of the Dark Ether Zombies maps. I think that the environmental storytelling has been so good here. But of course, like I said, I mentioned the secret rooms. Like, all the secret rooms look really cool. And then you've got the Sam AI room, and it just looks so incredible. I absolutely love the way a lot of the map looks, and it's so cool. Visually, it definitely is a very stunning map. But I think you could say that for a lot of the Black Ops 6 maps. I think that visuals and aesthetic are kind of, they're riding the same wavelength, but I think there are some differences that people are making. So visually, I think all of the maps on Black Ops 6 have been pretty good. I think the only exception is like Liberty Falls. I think visually that's pretty bland for the most part, but the rest of the maps have visually been pretty good, and Shattered Vale is definitely no different. But in some ways, it definitely feels like a back-to-basics approach in the way that Treyarch used to deliver the atmosphere and the aesthetic to players through, like I said, environmental storytelling. That is something that a lot of the OG games did. I think Black Ops 3 is probably the best example you could give of how environmental storytelling went a long way into delivering the vibe and the aesthetic of a map. Of course, you can compare Black Ops 3 for a lot of things, but I think environmental storytelling is a really good way to do it. And I feel like Shattered Vale did a really good job at that, and I think it definitely deserves to somewhat be compared to the way Black Ops 3 went about it. And of course, like I said, like, the visuals are amazing. The atmosphere is really good here. It is a really pleasing map to play. It looks really good. It's very satisfying running around and killing all the zombies. It feels good, right? The map feels good. That's the best way to describe it. But I do feel like a big reason why the atmosphere really works on this map is mainly because of the soundtrack. And listen, if you're new to the channel, let me explain this. I love to yap about the soundtrack because, in my opinion, music, it means a lot to me, and I think it's so important to zombies and to anything, to games, to movies, to shows. Anything. Music is so important, one of the most important things ever. Zombies has always had amazing music, and Shattered Vale is no different. Everyone on the sound team deserves so much praise for this map. Everyone, Kevin Sherwood, Brian Toohey, Tori Letzler, like, everyone on that sound team deserves absolute praise for this map, because Falling to Pieces, which is the music Easter egg on this map, is amazing. Maluka returned to do that song. It was such a good song. I still listen to it every now and then. Samantha's Soul, which is a large underscore to this map. It plays throughout several different areas. It plays when you first enter the mansion. It plays when you first enter the Sam AI room, and it just plays at different intervals of this map, and it's so unbelievably good. It is an incredible piece of music, and I love the way they utilize it, and it's one of my favorite zombie soundtracks that I've heard in recent memory. I'm just gonna be completely honest, it really is. And on top of that, the round change music is amazing as well. It even utilizes some of Samantha's Soul in it, and I love that. But one of the things that I really love about the soundtrack on this map that I feel like was somewhat missing in the previous Black Ops 6 maps were area-specific themes, and Samantha's Soul, I think, is a good example of it. Like I said, when you first enter the mansion, you hear it. When you first enter the Sam AI room, you hear it. But even, like, the greenhouse outside where you do the plant stuff for the ray gun variant, that even has, like, a soundtrack that plays around that area that I think is really cool. Of course, similar to previous Black Ops 6 maps, there are certain music stingers that play for certain parts of the Easter egg, like when you unlock an area and when you're doing the HVT lockdowns and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, they've done that on all the Black Ops 6 maps, and that's no different here. And then, of course, the boss fight music is absolutely spectacular here, as it has been in the previous maps. Like, I've loved the boss fight music on every single map in this game, and it is no different here. I think it's so unbelievably good to fit such a really good boss, which I am going to talk about more later. So, just real quick, wanted to say big shout out to the sound team, everyone involved, and like I said, I just love to yap about the music and the soundtrack, so deal with it, guys. But yeah, just really big shout out to them. But I feel like one of the hottest topics going into this map were the wonder weapons, because in the marketing, or even in the leaks, they were showing that we were going to be getting the Ray Gun Mark II back and the Wunderwaffe, and specifically the Wunderwaffe. I think there was a lot of concern over if it was just going to be the Wunderwaffe or if it was going to be the Wunderwaffe and Ray Gun Mark II. But then the trailer cleared that up and showed it was going to be both, as well as the fact that the Ray Gun was going to be getting variants again. But this was sparking some controversy because we've already seen the Wunderwaffe so many times, so at this point it was just so uninteresting to see it back. And we've seen the Ray Gun Mark II a lot of times, and not only that, we've seen them do variants before on Alpha Omega, so it really wasn't going to be anything that different. And the way that they were describing the variants, it sounded very similar to the variants on Alpha Omega, so it just didn't feel like the wonder weapons were going to be anything original here. But even with that being said, the wonder weapons were still pretty good for the most part. They've got their issues, but they are still pretty fun to use for the most part. But like I said, a lot of the community found the Wonder Waff so uninteresting now, and I think we can still back that up. The Wonder Waff, even playing it on this map, it's not bad, but it is so uninteresting. So I think that the community is kind of backed up there. Now, there is a pretty interesting side Easter egg to get it, but I feel like the issue here is that I don't find much of a motivation to go after it, because not only do you need to be basically halfway through the Easter egg in order to even start that side Easter egg, but there is not much of a need for it unless you're going for high rounds. Right now, like, if you're going for high rounds, then of course you're probably going to want it, but like for the most part, you don't need the Wonder Waff for the Easter egg. You really don't. So if you are a hardcore Easter egg player, you're not going to be going after the Wonder Waff very much. The only way you can access it is through that side Easter egg, which you need to do half the Easter egg to get, or you can get it through the box. It's either way. You can do it either way, but at the end of the day, personally, I don't feel like there's much motivation to get it. Other people may feel differently, but that's the way I feel about it. I just do wish that they utilized the Wonder Waff at some point in the Easter egg. Some people may not like the fact that, you know, you're required to get certain things for the Easter egg and they prefer it to be optional. I'm fine with that for some instances, but the Wonder Waff, it's just, even though I know we've seen it so many times, I know it's uninteresting, at least utilize it on the map a certain way, right? Like, it just feels so pointless it being there, to be completely honest. Like, you could have just done the ray gun variants and it would not feel like anything has changed, to be completely honest, because the Wonder Waff just feels, in my opinion, non-existent on the map throughout the Easter egg. You don't need it, and it just doesn't make much sense to me. I don't understand the point of it. I don't understand the point of not including it in the Easter egg. The RNG may have sucked for it if you needed to get it out of the box, or if you just wanted to do the side Easter egg to get it. That probably would have sucked, but at the very least, you're including it, right? Like, I just don't understand the point of not including it. It feels completely worthless, to be completely honest. The free non-upgraded ray gun Easter egg is a lot of fun to do. It's pretty easy for the most part, except the waiting for round 10. I don't understand. I hate any kind of steps that require you to wait a certain round in order for you to be able to even do it. I hated it on Citadel. I hated it on IX. I don't understand the point of it. It's so dumb. But each variant is a lot of fun to get. I do like a lot of the quests for the ray guns, except the abomination step. That's probably the only step that I maybe don't like as much. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's a speedrunner's worst nightmare, that's for sure. But personally, as someone who's just playing it to get the ray gun, it's not that bad. Like, it's not horrible, but it's not good either, right? I think it's my least favorite part of all of the ray gun quests, for sure. But the other two quests are pretty fun to do, maybe except for the part where you have to go on a scavenger hunt looking for all the plants and blowing them up and getting the seeds and things like that. But, you know, planting them and doing the little lockdown for that, it's not really a lockdown, but, you know, killing zombies around it, that's pretty fun to do for the most part. And the Dark Ether Worm side Easter egg thing where you have to get the reflectors and line them all up in the correct spot and get the doppelgas and things like that. That's probably my favorite quest out of all three of them. I love doing that. It's so cool. Unlocking that secret room, it's so cool. It's absolutely my favorite one, and it's so much fun to do. But like I said, I think that the main thing that would have made them better is just if they were completely original, or at the very least they made the variants somewhat different than the ones that we saw in Alpha Omega, but they can kind of be made up for the fact that they are somewhat fun to use and somewhat fun to get. So the wonder weapons, they can slide. They've got their issues, but I do have a good time with them. And now it's time to get into how I feel about the Easter egg and the boss fight. So, in my opinion, this is the first time out of all of Black Ops 6, it really feels like the Easter egg has a lot of detail put into it. Now, I feel like a lot of people can gripe about the way it feels like a scavenger hunt, but as someone who loves Dead of the Night, I feel like it would be very hypocritical of me to say I don't like it, which I don't, by the way. Like, I do enjoy doing it. I do like the scavenger hunt portion of it. I do like the fact that you have to learn it and memorize the locations. Some people may not like it. People who make a bunch of guides, people who are speedrunning, things like that, they may not like it. The casuals, I don't know. Personally, I do like it because it does feel somewhat like the classic Easter eggs that we used to have, where you would have to go on a lot of scavenger hunting. I think the main gripe I have with it, though, is another gripe that I have with the previous Black Ops 6 Easter eggs. I just wish it was longer, right? Like, I just really wish that the Easter egg was longer, because at the end of the day, it's just, getting the ray gun and upgrading each of the variants, and then it's doing 3 rituals, and then it's the boss fight. That is literally it. Now, granted, from a specific standpoint, there are actually things that you need to do before you can start the ritual itself, but from a broader perspective, it's literally, that's it. That's all it is. It's just upgrade the ray guns and do the 3 rituals. That is it. And I just wish that it was longer. I really wish it was. Now, with that being said, there are some fun steps throughout it, but the main thing that I really like about this Easter egg is how you can do it in a different order. And this is where it compares to Dead of the Night, in my opinion, where the Easter egg, you're given basically 3 quest lines, and you can do it in any order you want. I always love it when Easter eggs can let you change paths or do certain things differently, because I think that encourages replayability. I think I find myself coming back to Easter eggs where it's changing every time, right? Or either that, or you can do it differently every time. So I think this Easter egg does a really good job at that, and like Dead of the Night, you've got 3 quest lines, and you can do them in any order. I love that. I think that's something that other Easter eggs should do in the future, because, like I said, it encourages replayability, and I love that. But of course, the main event of this Easter egg is the entire ending, the boss fight, the 3rd act, if you will. Honestly, I feel like I can call it a 3rd act now, because, like, you've got the cutscene prior to the boss fight, you've got the boss fight itself, and then the end cutscene. It quite literally, the ending, it feels like a movie. So I think it's safe to say the 3rd act of the Easter egg is the main event. From the pre-cutscene to the boss fight to the end cutscene, that entire bit is amazing. It is so good. The boss fight itself is so cool. It's so memorable for so many reasons. I mean, like the cutscenes, for example, but the fact that you are literally fighting a dinosaur, it is insane. And the structure of it, it feels very similar to the IX fight, where you're having to run around this giant arena, somewhat giant arena. Obviously the IX arena is much bigger, but this is still big enough for you to be able to traverse a really giant enemy, right? But, you know, the dinosaur's chasing after you, and you have to shoot at its weak points, similar to what the elephant does on IX, and quite literally the Guardian on Citadel des Morts as well, but the dinosaur doesn't have as much health. So it's got some similarities, but I love this fight a lot. I think it's really good, and most likely in my top 10 boss fights of all time. But I think everything that I said previously about all of the prior steps before the boss fight, the boss fight itself, all of the cutscenes, things like that, I think it all ties together very well for a really, really solid Easter egg. And a lot of people have thought it is the best Easter egg of the game. I don't necessarily know. I don't know if it's the best one. I don't think it's the best one, but I think it's up there. It's really close. It's like, it's on the brink. It's tough for me to tell. I think the main thing that the community, especially the hardcore community, is extremely happy about with this map is the fact that the storyline is easily at its strongest here throughout the entire game, and that is so good because it really needed it, especially coming off from the tomb. And like I said, we're probably really satisfied because of the fact that the community wasn't thinking this was going to be anything that big, even though a lot of people in the community were really hoping it would be, because the map needed to be, because we're coming to this mansion, to Richtofen's mansion. A lot of story threads needed to come together here, and a lot of them really did. Richtofen, of course, comes back. He is a welcome return, and I'm very happy he showed back up in this map. I think a lot of other people are as well. Weaver complimented this well, and Carver finally got some lines, thank God. It's only a couple, but hey, it's something, man. But even the cutscene right before the boss fight alone is some of the best story we've gotten in Zombies in quite a while. That cutscene was amazing. Richtofen going against Weaver, and then it cutting to them running away from the dinosaur. Like, that entire cutscene was so good, and just seeing them interact with each other, oh, it was so good. And even the end cutscene was also really good, where they are setting up the next map, and, you know, we finally get to team up with Richtofen. It's so cool. But I think it is getting a lot of other people excited and hyped again, and very interested to see what's going to happen in the future. And I'm definitely very curious to see how the characters are going to interact with each other on the next map, especially with some of the revelations that we got on this map with, you know, Richtofen talking to Weaver, saying how he killed his family, basically. Like, how are the other characters going to look at Weaver after that? I'm very interested to see how that's going to be. But it is really nice to see a lot of people getting extremely excited over the story again, and getting excited and interested to see what's going to happen on the next map. So now I do want to take the time to go over what I think this map could have done to be a lot better. And I feel like the number one thing is this map, it really suffers from missed opportunities, but I feel like I can say that for every other Black Ops 6 map, to be completely honest, and really just a lot of these maps, previously in recent years, I can say that. I already talked about the reused wonder weapons, the lack of originality there, but I just feel like some of the steps in the Easter egg could have been done different or done better, but I did mention that previously, so that's really nothing new. But I think one of the things that disappointed me the most was just the lack of really good side Easter eggs. And that's also disappointing coming off of the tomb where we had that really good side Easter egg with the golden armor. I think that was such a good side Easter egg. I think that was such a good reward to get. But it just doesn't feel like we're getting anything that interesting here. Now, that's not to say that we didn't get anything completely unique. I think we got the Sam AI trap, I think was somewhat cool. I don't think it's that spectacular or anything like that, and I think the quest to get it is somewhat tedious a little bit, but it still looks cool. I think that's what it's got going for it. But then, of course, like I said, you've got the Wonderwaff side Easter egg, you've got a bunch of other things, I think there's like a sleepwalking Easter egg, things like that, but there's just not a lot of really interesting side Easter eggs. There is that one funny one where it's the fog rolling in, but I feel like the way to get it is just so ridiculous and random for it to just be a joke side Easter egg. I don't really know what the point of that was, but it is funny nonetheless. But I'm just disappointed that we didn't get anything completely unique for this map or anything that good or rewarding like we did on the tomb. So that's probably the most frustrating part, and I wish that they did a better job at that. So now that I've said all that about Shattered Veil, I do want to give a small ranking of all of the Black Ops 6 maps so far. So I still think my number one spot is going to be Citadel, Daymorts. I still think that's my favorite. I think I'm going to give number 2 to Terminus, and then number 3 to Shattered Veil. This may change. I may put Shattered Veil above Terminus at some point, but right now, I think I'm going to keep Terminus here. Number 4 is going to be the Tomb, and number 5 is Liberty Falls. So these are my Black Ops 6 rankings right now. However, I would not be surprised if Shattered Veil overtakes Terminus at some point in the near future, because I do enjoy high rounding on Shattered Veil more than I do on Terminus, and I think that's a really big deal for me. So Shattered Veil could overtake Terminus, but I think Shattered Veil, it's still got some flaws to kink out before I can really put it ahead of Terminus, if that makes sense. So that's my ranking so far. But overall, I do think that this map exceeded a lot of expectations, especially considering the fact that those expectations were really low. And I think we're really thankful it did. And I'm very happy to see that the community is very responsive to this. They are very positive about it. They are excited to see where we're going in the future. And I feel like that is really needed. Now, granted, I did feel that way earlier in Black Ops 6 when Terminus came out. The story in that map was also pretty good, so people were excited to see where we're going there, and I felt the same way there. So it's nice to feel that again here on Shattered Veil, because it does feel like there's been somewhat of a gap within the quality of the Zombies maps recently. So I'm very happy that the community is happy. I'm very happy that other people are excited, and I, for one, am super excited to see where we're going next. So I'm going to go ahead and end the review here. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave a like on the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to stay notified for other videos and streams that I do on the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.